Today's video, I want to talk to you guys about a sticky subject. And when I'm talking about a sticky subject, today we're talking about our head cements, our super glues, UV resins, those kinds of things. I'm going to show you guys a few tips and tricks that are going to help us along the way with those chemicals. Now, this is a very broad subject. There's a million tips out there. I'm not going to have the time in this video to share them, nor do I know all of them. So if you guys have any, share them in the comments and let us know. I may add another video, or at least the guys watching, guys and gals watching can see, and we can all learn from each other. So let's get started. The very first thing we're going to talk about today is head cement. We all use head cement. The only time I don't use head cement is when I'm tying carp flies for other people. My personal carp flies, I use it. I catch carp. Everybody says they smell. I don't know. I don't see a difference. But some people are finicky, so there's that. When I get head cement, there's two kinds of bottles that I mainly use. One is this applicator bottle, which I use for 99% of my flies. Unless I'm tying big saltwater type flies that I want to build a big head base on, this is the kind I'm using. You can also get fingernail polish. Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails. This is called Super Dry. It's a clear fingernail polish from the Dollar Tree. I like it. Seems to work just as well. Or you can get the head cement that comes in bottles like this. Now, you can get it that's just got a bottle and you unscrew it and you put your bodkin in there and you wipe it on. And it's kind of a pain in the butt. I like the kind like this that have an opening on the top, and it's got a little deal that catches the cement and brings it down so it's not making a mess. I really like this for my thicker head cements, for clouser minnow, saltwater flies, stuff that I want a flexible head on. Now in the modern age, a lot of us have went to UV resin, and I use UV resin, but I don't use it for those kinds of flies. If I'm making a saltwater fly, a lot of times I'm fishing the jetties, I'm fishing stuff that have really big sharp teeth, and they're going to tear it up. If you bounce UV resin over and over on top of stuff, it eventually breaks off. The flexible head cements and the thicker head cements like that, they don't. So we'll get into that in a second. So the first thing, when you get your head cement, it's going to come in a bottle, one of the three options like I've showed you. The very first thing I'm going to do on the kind like this, and like I say, this is what I use for most everything. You just pull this little needle out, you squirt what you need, and you're done. It goes really easy. It's so much more cost effective because you're not wasting anything. And when you tie like I do, the time frame, man, it's just fast. The first thing I'm going to do, we all want a tube of chapstick. If you're going to have adhesives, paints, glues on your desk, you want chapstick. Now separate this tube from the ones that you're going to use. Unless you have a kid that talks all the time like mine, you might let them use this and they'll seal their mouth up. But for the regular thing, we want to make sure that we have a tube that's just for our adhesives on our desk. First thing, when we get our head cement, we're going to undo the cap. We're going to take our chapstick and we're going to just wipe it around. When we wipe it around, what that's going to do is that's going to lubricate these threads. So the bottle goes up and down, the threads screw right on without a problem. That lubricates the threads, that protects the plastic so that the head cement's not sticking to it, and while it's doing that, it also seals and builds a barrier so moisture and air can't go through them threads. Now, it's pretty sealed when you get it from the store, but it's not nowhere near as sealed as this. Moisture and air are enemies when it comes to our adhesives, so this protects it, makes it last way longer. This is really important to do. I do this on all my super glues, my head cements, everything. The only thing I don't do it on is UV resins because they're so finicky. I don't mess with the bottle. It makes them last way longer. So when you do that, you're going to have a sealed bottle that's going to last longer. Now, head cement comes thicker than I like it. When I put my head cement on, I don't want it to leave a little drop on top. I want it to suck down into them threads. So the very first thing I do when I get my head cement is I get a bottle of rubbing alcohol. This is regular rubbing alcohol. I mean, it's a Walmart brand. You can get it, and when you get the rubbing alcohol, you can squirt several drops into your head cement, and it will thin it down to where it's runnier. And when it gets runnier, it'll suck down into the thread, so it's not just sealing the outer layer. It'll permeate the whole thread. It seals down. Seems to do a lot better job than traditional. I really like it. Works well for me. The next thing, say we're using our Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails or fingernail polish, whatever it is, I still thin a lot of that down. Now people are like, well, fingernail polish is acetone based, and they're correct. You can add acetone if you want, but if you dump acetone and make a mess, it's going to eat the finish off of whatever you have. If it vapors off in your hot water heater or your heater goes on and blow your house up, acetone's a dangerous chemical. Now I do get acetone as fingernail polish remover, and there's a time and a place that I use it, but I use the alcohol most of the time, and it's no different than gasoline. We can mix alcohol, ethanol, with our petroleum-based gasoline, and they still blend in certain percentages, and it's no different with this. The rubbing alcohol will actually thin your stuff down and make it last a lot longer. So if you use a fingernail polish, whatever kind of head cement it is, and it starts to get thick and jelly, add a little bit of a rubbing alcohol to it, and before long it lubes right back up and it's good to go. Something else I like to do, this is a brand new bottle. Always, like I say, the chapstick, and then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut that tip down to a point. So I have a fine point, so if I'm actually going to use the brush, I can unbrush it and hit down with a very finesse point, and it's going to help me a whole lot. The next thing we're going to talk about is super glue. I use a lot of super glue. We all use a lot of super glue. I hate these tubes. These tubes of super glue are trash as far as I'm concerned. I don't hardly ever use them. They just make a mess. However, this specific kind I use is gel. Gorilla Glue gel is awesome. When you squeeze it out, it comes out really thick and it comes out very pinpoint where you want it. It doesn't go all over the place. So if you're adding eyes, you know, sticking different pieces of stuff together, this stuff works really, really, really well because it doesn't make a mess. It's the best super glue there is for adding eyes as far as I'm concerned. I use it all the time for that. Now, I don't use regular super glue unless I use a brush-on super glue. Now, we all know Zap-A-Gap's probably the best there is. Zap-A-Gap is a really good super glue. Fly tires around the world use it. It's a little bit more expensive and I can't find it locally. So I use my Zap-A-Gap, but I also have learned that brush-on fingernail glue is pretty much the same thing. They're same chemicals. I don't know the exact measurements of it, but it seems to be just as durable as it is for me. So if I'm gluing pieces of foam together, if I'm gluing, you know, whatever materials I'm doing together, when I tie like the trash flies, like mop flies and worms and eggs to see patterns and stuff like that, I put this on my hook base before I even do my thread wrap to where they all bind down and they're just that much stronger, so when people are fishing with my flies, they're more durable. Works extremely well. The brush-on fingernail glue, I mean, this is $1.25 a bottle. It's really cheap. Again, open it up. Chapstick, I already did this. This is one I've been using. Chapstick your thread, and that's going to really help seal the air and the moisture out of the bottle. If you buy a lot of super glue at once, it'll dry out before you can ever use it. So if you do that to them, it really helps. Now, if you buy multiple bottles at once, store them in the refrigerator. I have a little bucket in the door of my refrigerator that I store all my super glues in that aren't currently being used on my desk. They'll last indefinitely. Before I put them in there, I chapstick them still. I put them in there. They store. They're great. They'll last an eternity in there. The only problem when you do that is when you pull them out, you need to let them acclimate back to room temperature before you use them. The cold glue doesn't have the adhesion rates that the regular glue does, so always warm them up. The next little thing that you're going to need if you're using super glue is accelerator. Now you can get this pretty much anywhere, and I'll try to put links for all the different things in there. But what this is, it's like a little spritz that you can spray on your super glue and it makes it hard that fast. So if you're trying to glue something together and you're trying to hold it, you hit it with that and it dries it instantly. You can move to your next step. So accelerator is really important. Something else I use, and it doesn't come packaged like this, I put it this way, is baking soda. Now, I steal this out of my kitchen and my wife doesn't know because I just do a little bit at a time. But say you're making a popper, or you want a body that is really nice and smooth, or you know, you got a damaged area on a piece of cork or foam, you can put your super glue down and you can sprinkle a little bit of this on, and it works very similar to the way acrylic nails are done. So if you ever seen a person get acrylic nails, they brush on a glue and then they put the powder on it. It's the same type of a setup. Now, it won't be 100% smooth when you do that. So what I recommend is getting a nail file, and you can take and smooth it out to where it is, I mean, it'll be like auto body, you know, it'll look like automotive paint when you get done. The thing will be absolutely smooth and shiny. And you can just add a little bit, put super glue down, sprinkle a little bit, hit it with accelerator, add super glue, and you can build it to whatever you need. It works really good at filling voids. Baking soda and super glue, you can do a lot of really cool stuff with it. I've actually got some poppers that I made that way, and I'll make a video and show you guys. So the next thing, we want to talk about the head cements that are flexible. So one of the best there is, Dave Whitlock come up with, is Flex Cement. And it is a very thick, almost silicone-y looking. I have no idea what it's made out of, but when you buy it, you want to make sure you have the thinner that goes with it. Flex Cement I use nonstop with all of my saltwater flies. A lot of guys go to UV resin and they hit it with their UV resin, and that's great. But I fish the jetties a lot, so when I'm fishing there and all the rocks, you hit them epoxied flies, it breaks off, it chips off. The Flex Cement is durable. It's not going to do that. When it hits a rock or whatever, it's soft, it bounces off. When the toothy fish eats on it, it's going to bounce off. It's going to work really well. And there's another product called Softex that's the same. And basically, they're really flexible. They'll seal the threads and stuff down, but they're so much more durable than UV resin. If you're going to be fishing with saltwater, building up heads, you want to use that. And that's where I use this bottle at. And I can get it on my needle and I can just build it up. If I want to get it thicker than that, I just unscrew the lid and I can make it thicker. It works really, really well. Now, if you're using UV resins and you're wanting to get UV resin on, and a lot of times you put it thick and it starts to get air bubbles, another trick I've learned, and I learned this in the decorative concrete industry, is I take a little spritz bottle like this and it has denatured alcohol in it. Now, when you do like concrete countertops and you put your alcohol down and there's bubbles, a lot of guys will take a torch and stuff like that. You can take a spritzer and hit it with denatured alcohol and it'll turn it to a sheet of glass. And it's the same with fly tying. So if you're putting your UV resin up there and it starts to bubble up, spritz it with some denatured alcohol real quick and it'll smooth all them bubbles out. Then hit it with your UV light and you're good to go. Now, when we talk about UV lights, I've got lights that are huge, so I can do multiple flies at once. Plus it gets a little bit hotter and dries faster, and I got the typical smaller ones. Now, UV resin is tricky. There's some that have different wavelengths. You want to make sure that you have the light that's correct for it. And you know, and you can get the name brands. There's the Solares, which is really, really good. Loon, I really like Loon products. But you can also go to Hobby Lobby and for half the price get a bottle that's 3 times bigger. It works really well. The very same type of a deal. When you're using UV resins, you can get dyes as well. You can buy little dyes at the Hobby Lobby store that have all the different colors. So if you want to change colors, you can add whatever color you want. I also have little bottles like this that you can buy in a pack of 4 for under $10 at Hobby Lobby of 4 different colors. And I think I've got over 25 different colors of UV resin. It works really well and it's got its place and its point. However, when you use your UV resin, and you hit it with your light, a lot of times it's still going to be tacky. It's never going to get 100% cured. So what I do, behind me, you can see sunlight coming in. I have a window there, and I have a little glass tray that I'll sit my flies in, and it's a little Pyrex bowl, and I'll sit my flies in there in the direct sunlight and let them get glared on by the sun, and the sun will cure them hard as a rock. If you don't have a window like that, you can get your little glass bowl and sit them outside somewhere where they don't blow away, or get a glass lid and put on top of it and let that sunlight shine on them for several minutes. I leave mine out for a couple hours and it'll make that UV resin so dang hard it's just going to be absolutely impossible for it to get sticky like it does with the light. It just does so much better of a job. Something else I like to use is this E6000. You can get another product called Shugu, and it's like a silicone-y type stuff, and it works really well for them saltwater heads as well. But I can also stick eyes on with it, and you can do a lot of good with this stuff. It's a product I use a lot, and it has its place. Saltwater fly heads, you can rub over the top of it. Like I say, you can bind things together. So if you're trying to stick foam together or whatever, a lot of times you can use the same thing, clamp it down, and it works really well. Now, epoxies are something that we don't use very often anymore, but there's still a time and a place where we use epoxies or paints. And I've seen where, like Tim Flagler, he'll use like Post-it notes, and he'll mix whatever he's doing on them. Then when he's done, he folds them up, throws them in the trash, and that works great. But I found something that I like a whole lot better, and it's one of these, I think they're called Poppets. It's like a little silicone thing. I don't really know what they are. They're toys that I guess kids push back and forth. I found this at the dollar store. And you can poke all these little holes down. So if you're wanting to add color, or you're mixing paints, or you're using paints and you don't want to make a mess, you just dump them in each one of those little containers. Then do what you're doing. If you're mixing epoxy, mix your epoxy in there. Whatever it is, you know, paints, epoxies, glues, whatever you're using, mix them and do whatever you're doing. There's plenty of room for multiple, times and colors. The next morning, you just come and you pop it out, and it peels right off. It doesn't stick to the silicone product. It's a really amazing resource to use when you're using different glues and stuff like that. So these are little tips and tricks. I do use super glue. I base super glue on almost all of my trash type flies, my mops, my mega worms, my eggs, and stuff like that I sell to the public because I want them to be a little bit stronger. So when that happens, your scissors tend to get glued down on the bottom. This pair actually has some on it right now. So I will get my acetone fingernail polish remover, and I make sure I have a bottle that's pretty full, And I literally just dangle my scissors in them, making sure I don't get the plastic handle in there, and just dangle my scissors in there for about 20 minutes, open them up, take a paper towel, and it will wipe right off, and it will eliminate all of the glue that's on there. It'll also, there's a lot of different build-up, different materials add to your scissors. It'll keep them clean. Clean scissors are sharp scissors. So I hope these little tips help. I know there's a million others out there, but I wanted to share a few of them that I had. So I hope these tips help. If you guys have any of your own, please share them in the comments so we can all learn off each other. And if it's something really cool and I try it, maybe I'll like it to a new video. So if you haven't, please check out our webpage. It's got links to all of our different social media. It's got my author page where you can buy my books. I write short outdoor stories that are humorous and stuff. So it's got links to that. It's got kind of a schedule of events where we're going to be at and different things we're involved in. So please check us out with all those things. I'll make links to some of the items that we have in this in the description so you guys can get any of it if you want. As always, we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you in the next video.